Alright guys, in this video, I will be showing you how to change your SharePoint domain name. If you don't know what the SharePoint domain name is, the SharePoint domain name is the URL that you see when you navigate to your SharePoint site. So for example, I'm on this SharePoint site and you can see this 7GY blah blah blah, which is a very ugly domain name, .sharepoint.com is my SharePoint domain name. So if you, for whatever reason, have added any domain name at the point of creating your tenants for your Microsoft 365 environment and you don't like that anymore, or you want to change that, it is possible and it just requires a few steps to do. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to do that step by step. So what I want to change this very ugly domain name into a nicer one. One thing to note is that your SharePoint domain name will always have the .sharepoint.com at the back. So you cannot completely replace it with a plain domain name like you have here. So you cannot change your SharePoint domain name to, for example, fajitech.com. You will always have a base domain name of .sharepoint.com. So the first thing you need to do, you need to be a global administrator. That's very important. You have to be a global administrator to make this change. So the first thing you need to do, you need to go into the admin center. If you don't know how to navigate to the admin center as a global administrator, you just need to type this URL, admin.microsoft.com, and that's going to take you to the landing page. So the next thing you do after that is to go into settings, click on this arrow, and then you navigate to domains. So I'm going to click on domains. So once we've navigated to the domain section, we want to add a new .onmicrosoft.com domain. Yeah. The original domain name that we're currently using is this 7GYHCK, and you can tell that is the default one because there's a default in brackets. I've already added the domain name I want to change my SharePoint URL to, but to add that, I'm just going to show you the process. The first thing you need to do is to click on the default domain, like I showed you. You click on that, and then you would find something. You find the section where they'll write add on Microsoft.com domain. You click on that, right? And then you can type in the domain. So Faj, I'm not going to add that because I've already added it before. You can see there's also notification that says this domain can be removed after it's added. So make sure you're adding the correct domain. Make sure the spelling is correct before you add the domain. Yes, and you can only add 5 total on Microsoft.com domain. So you need to use your 5 slots wisely. And then if I click on add domain, I don't want to add this domain. If I click on add domain, that's going to add the domain. And if I go back, once you've added the domain, you get something like this, right? With this LD sign. And once you've done that, you've added your domain successfully and you can move on to the next step. So the domain name I'm going to be using is this fajakad.onmicrosoft.com, which I've added earlier. I want to swap this domain name with this one. So I'm just going to go into that domain name that I've added. And you can see, I can make this domain name my fallback domain name. Yeah. But it does give you a note that says this won't change the SharePoint domain or OneDrive URL, this can only be changed through PowerShell. And then it gives you a link to a web page that explains everything. So this web page basically highlights all the things that you need to consider before making this change to your tenants. So it is best to read this information and make sure that you are aware of what the changes might cause to your users or to your tenants. And once you've done that and you've read all of this and you are happy to go ahead, the next step is to change your SharePoint domain name. So the first thing you need to do when you want to do this is to download the SharePoint Online Management Shell. You are going to need to use some PowerShell scripts to do this. If you haven't done any sort of PowerShell scripting before, or you feel like you don't know how to code, or you're scared of scripts or code, don't worry, it's quite easy, and I'm going to show you how to do that. All you need to do is to copy and paste, and you can get that done. So the first step, again, like I said, you click on this, you need to download the SharePoint Online Management Shell. You click on that, you download that for Windows, you install that. Once you've installed that, we're going to go back to the page, and then so I've already installed that on this computer. So I'm going to open SharePoint Online Management Shell because I've already installed that again. And then, okay, so I've got that opened. I'm going to go back again. So step 1, done. The next step is to connect to SharePoint as at least a SharePoint administrator in Microsoft 365. So we will need to connect to this as a SharePoint administrator. Okay, so we do this. Once we've done this, so we copy this script. I'm going to open a notepad and I'm going to type that script in there. So the script is connect SPO service URL, and then the URL, the admin URL for my SharePoint, or the SharePoint admin URL for my tenant. This is not the SharePoint admin URL for my tenant. So what do I need to do? I need to get the SharePoint admin URL for my tenant. How do I do that? I go back to the admin center again. So if you don't know how to get there, again, it's admin.microsoft.com. Then you scroll down to under admin center section, you'd find the SharePoint section. You click on SharePoint, and then this is the SharePoint admin center, and this is the SharePoint admin center URL. All I need to do is click on copy that, right? Copy that up to the .com. You don't need all of this. Just up to the .com. I open up my notepad again, and then I replace this Contoso one with my own admin center URL. And then once I've done that, I copy that. I open up my SharePoint admin or SharePoint Online Management Shell, paste that in there. I click on the enter button on my keyboard. The next thing I need to do is to log in to my account. My username popped up because I've logged in before. So I'm just trying to log in now. 1 second. So once you logged in, you should enter a new line, and then we move to the next stage. So stage 2 done. Stage 3 now for renaming the SharePoint URL. So this is what I want to copy. I'm going to copy the example one. I'll bring up my notepad again, click on enter, domain name. So as you can see, the script says start SPO tenant rename, yeah, hyphen domain name, and then this should be the domain name you want to change it to. Remember, you've already connected to your tenant, so the domain name you should have here is the new domain name, the new one you want to change it to. Then schedule date and time, which is another parameter, should be this is the year, this is the month, this is the day. Then T, this is the hour, minute, and second. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation. First thing you need to consider is that the domain name is the part before the SharePoint.com. So if we go back to our SharePoint site, okay, so this is our SharePoint site. So the domain name is usually this part before the SharePoint.com. So if we go back to our domains and we go back here, the domain name, the new domain name we want to change it to is this part before the onmicrosoft.com. So that's what we need to type in our script. We don't need to type in the old thing. So we will only type in fetch a card. And then the scheduled date and time, if you go back to the documentation again, it says the scheduled date and time should be at least 24 hours in the future, but not more than 30 days. The time you enter is based on the current date and time of the computer you're using. Okay, so I usually want to give myself at least 48 hours, just personal preference. And the reason why I do that is because of the difference in time zone. So if I want to do 24 hours from or 48 hours from now, I would say 2025, right? Today's date is the 2nd of May. So May is 05, fifth month of the year, and then on the 4th, which is 2 days from now. And then I'll leave the time as it is because it's 48 is it's at least above 24 hours. And then once I've got that, so I've got the domain name, enter the correct domain name, I've entered the correct time and second, the hour, minute and second. I'll just copy this and then all I have to do is paste that back into SharePoint Online Management Shell because and then once I've done that, click enter again, and then I get a prompt that says, are you sure you want to perform this action? Performing this operation, blah, 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 blah. And then all I have to do is type A for yes to all, right? And once I click enter, that should schedule this job for the time that I have already specified. I'm not going to do that now because I'm not trying to change the SharePoint URL just yet. But yeah, that's basically all you have to do to change your SharePoint URL. So after running the script to change your SharePoint URL at the scheduled date and time, you might also want to review some of the information in this documentation. Obviously, we did it to step 2, which are the major steps to change your URL. But depending on how much information you want or you need, you can also review step 3, 4, and 5. Step 3 about prioritizing sites. Step 4 about monitoring the status of the rename. Step 4 to review the features and settings after the rename, such as firewall rules, organizational settings, and all of that. But yeah, if you feel like any of this stuff is stuff that you need, then please feel free to review the documentation. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also drop comments if you got any ideas on videos that you want me to make. I'm happy to take recommendations from you guys. All right. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye.